when we first showed you all those things about the joy cycle, creating interest, okay? We want to maintain interest throughout the whole lesson, okay? And if you start to see somebody who's not having fun, or they're getting pummeled with no matter how easy the task you're making, they're just not getting it, they're not getting it, then these are some ways to help out with that, okay? Make sure that they frequent the podium, which means the more times they succeed, the more often that they're going to try something that they don't like later on in the session. Okay, when we talked about establishing interest, we want to make sure that we find a scaled version of the exercise or the drill or whatever it is that they can do. Then keep going in small increments from there. Okay, and this is going to rely on having you create a challenge and matching it with their skill level. If the challenge is too high for the skill level, they could become very discouraged. If it's too low, this is where they could become bored. If it's a little above the challenge, then we've piqued their interest. If it's exactly the same, that's when we enter a flow state. And a flow state is they're playing, they're just doing it, having fun, nothing else matters but that activity at that time. Okay? So preferably when we're teaching something, we're going towards a goal, we want to start off with a challenge being equal to the skill, allowing them to succeed, and then raising the bar just a bit, not so much that it's out of reach, but that they have to work at it, and not too boring that they become uninterested. Set the intention. Setting the intention always allows you to establish a contract. An emotional contract allows you to really plan for any type of failure that's going to happen, and plan for a lot of opting out that can happen, any type of avoidance techniques. Okay, we've got a whole bunch of delivery things coming up involving not opting out and those types of things. But for one example I have with a client, he will always come in and always want to play his game, and if I show him something that he wants to do that's really too hard, he'll always lay on the ground or roll around, or what about this, or ask questions, or want to go see Chris in his office and talk to him. Like, he's got all these different types of strategies, right? So if I just went through the lesson without setting an intention, said, okay, we're going to do 5 rounds of 3 squats, 5 push-ups, 7 squats, he would get through the first workout exercise and decide that it's either too hard, too easy, whatever it may be, and then decide to go see Chris. I want to go tell Chris something. Okay, well, I mean, like, then I tell him, no, we got to pull back, and then oh, I don't want to. So then we get into a conflict. All right. So how I can avoid that conflict before it even starts is plan for failure. So plan out his rests. You're allowed to take 1 3-second rest break during each exercise. You have to make sure that you finish all the exercises before we move on. Basically, just plan out the whole lesson with them, and have an equal understanding of what your expectations are and what their expectations are. Okay. So setting the intention is big, and in some other non-physical environments, it could be I'm going to make sure that I really focus. If I'm not focused, I'm going to tell you, and we're going to work on a focus drill, or you know what I mean. So this is going to depend on the environment, but is very, very necessary in order for the flow of your lesson. Okay. When someone gets stuck, we found that when someone visualizes a skill that's a little bit more difficult, so perfect example is a box jump. What we do is, on a box jump, a lot of women are afraid of jumping on a box. That's one of their number one fears for some reason. Mostly in women, is they don't want to leave the ground, and so we have to start off with small, and then instead of actually raising the challenge with a higher box, we tell them we have to jump higher on the box to get over an imaginary object. Okay, that's an example of visualizing a more difficult task. Then, once they've done that, then we try and create context around, okay, you've jumped really high on this box. Then we introduced the one that we want to go to, and then they perform it. Okay. So if sometimes rather than just actually increasing the challenge of the skill, if you can somehow visually create it or ask them to visually create something more difficult, that also helps before you enter in a more difficult task physically. Reinforce. Goes back to creating context. Okay, you always want to make sure you create context, because if what they're doing doesn't match up with where they want to go, or they don't know why they're doing it, good chances are they're going to lose interest, right? So constantly going back to creating contests. If you can't match up a reason, then you can always go to your safety net and say actions and habits. Okay? We want to create an action. We want to create a habit that involves this. That habit needs this type of action. Okay? Whether it's just doing something you don't want to do, that's an action. That action creates a habit of just, even though you don't like it, you're going to do it anyways. So even sometimes that's an entire session. We'll even just plan around that. We'll pick as many different activities that they don't want to do, chock full of them, and they just have to do it. We've had sessions where that's all we've done. Okay.
Or teenagers. I'm going to stick with teenagers for now, because most of our head injured teenagers that just get that, well, I don't care. You talk about being important. You said you wanted, well, I changed my mind. I don't care. Well, you said that this is something you want.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore.
Now, some days, nothing you can do. Okay? If you've done everything on our list, if we've gone through the steps, the intentions, we've set out stages for not opting out, we've created a plan, and they just don't do it, that's it. That's it. You've done everything you can. Sometimes as a coach, you just need to recognize not a lost cause, but just that day it's not gonna work out. And then we're gonna have to find something somewhat productive, something to play. Okay. The worst thing to do in that situation is allow them to feel crappy or allow them to feel that way, and then do nothing. Okay, well, we'll just sit around. Okay. We have to create a choice, and in that intention stage, if they are in that kind of a mode that day, then you have to give them choices. The choice is going to be the lesson or this game, and game is usually something in the warm-up that we play, or a focus drill, or let's just something somewhat productive, but something that they're just going to do, that they have to do. Because if they get in the habit of performing the action of, oh, I just don't care, and then you respond with, okay, we get to do something fun all the time, that's an action they're going to keep getting into, and then they're going to try it on some other therapist, and then they're going to try it on their parents. So sometimes you need to say, okay, let's just work on this today. Other times this is the consequence. Our action is to get something done that you don't want to do. That's a habit. We're gonna have to do something. We have to get it done. So it really is. It's tough to explain it, because there's so many different cases of it. But if I'm thinking of one particular client, I have to make sure that we always give them a choice, and never let them opt out of the entire lesson. But usually I can always come back around to what they've told me about their goal. They always have one goal, right, that you can circle back to and create an attachment to. Okay, what's your one goal? Let's say it's play hockey. Okay, well, people who play hockey, do this, do this, do this. You know, that yeah, people can have off days and they can have rest days. You're here for 30 minutes. We have to do something towards this goal. What's it going to be? And then give them the choice. You know, give them the choice to be, okay, we're going to play a game that's going to improve this skill, or we're going to do a lesson that's going to improve this skill. And if then they're doing nothing, that's when you as a coach say, okay, you know, this is a lost session. Consequence is you don't get to do anything. You don't get to play the game. You don't get to do anything you want. We'll try again next time. You know, and you've been through that more than enough. More than enough.
We just do
Every
everything in
week.
the parking lot of the high school.
That's right.
Nothing past that.
That's right. And yeah, I know Patrick could probably talk about this a lot better than I can right now, just with the one client he's working with. So,
And then how do you manage clients that are not physically, like they have no interest in physical activity, and yet you know that they need physical activity to improve everything else as well as their own emotional and health, and like, how do you,
you have to get them started with interest somehow, right? So, and that's when we
not into sports, not in it, like how do you,
you have to explore something. Go out and try a bunch of different things, just so you might be able to recognize a tendency, something that they like. Something like there's a ton of ideas out there. So if they don't like coming here and working out, maybe they might like going to play tennis. Maybe they might like just walking up a hill. Something. Okay. Usually it's challenge based. That's why CrossFit works so well, right? We'll chunk things up and say, okay, you got to do this for time. Or usually a challenge base will get them interested in something.
like
Or
I look at those kids you had here yesterday, and there was like 3 or 4 of them that you could tell just have no interest in physical activity. Like
yeah,
it's sad, but I mean
right. So then it's okay. Well, you know what's good for them. It's doing something. As long as they do something, you know that's great. You can't make everybody do the whole workout. That's just, you know, as a coach, you have to realize that okay, you can't fix everybody. You can't make it. Doesn't matter how good you are. Some people are just not going to have that interest. But as long as you've accomplished something, that's all you can ask for. Really, and that's one of the hardest things to learn, you know, because that's why we're in this business is we want to help people. Well, some people just can't be helped, and you have to recognize that you've done everything you can. You can't get over the top emotionally invested in the fact that this person's not buying into what you're selling, and then leave it at that. If you care too much, you'll ruin your nights when you're not at work. Okay. When I was talking about challenge and skill, that's what we mean here. Scaling exercise to increase the flow. When the challenge and the skill are exactly equal, that's when flow happens. And when flow happens, it's just play. And when the more time that you're in flow, the more basically this is all equal. There's a lot of communication between both sides. A lot of good things happen when you're in flow. Okay. The best thing about flow is that when you look at the hierarchy, is all those things are taken care of. You know, they don't have to worry about if they feel safe. They don't have to worry about being bullied. They don't have to worry about any of that stuff because now they're just engaged in the skill. It's fun. They're playing. That's great. You know, it's really awesome to see someone do that. I've witnessed a few times when we're trying to work towards, let's say, a walking lunge for someone who has lower limb impairment. Well, when we find an exercise that they can do, they love it. And I'll sometimes even just walk away a little bit, step back, and abandon the lesson, and just let them keep on trying it and playing with it. And they've done that. You know, they've gone for 5 minutes and just gone and played. And then after, they're exhausted, right? But they don't realize how tired they are during the movement or how many reps he's actually done because it was just all play. And it's pretty easy to recognize when someone's in flow. because if they screw up, they won't get mad and wait for your approval or another cue. They'll just correct it on their own and keep playing and playing. So that's the kind of state that we want them to be in after the lesson and when they're practicing the skill. This is huge, and this is a big problem with teachers and the school system and parents, is praising the result. Oh, you're so smart. You got an A on that test, and you didn't even study. Come on. That's showing that, okay, the less I do, then if I don't perform an A, well, it must have been somebody. It must have been something else. It must have been the teacher. It must have been, then we start passing off the responsibility onto other people. Okay, if we praise effort, doesn't matter what the result is, then you're going to get a student who's going to put more pride in doing something and doing it well than versus what the outcome is. And we got a whole program based just around that. It's called the growth mindset, and understanding that the results will vary depending on a lot of things, but ultimately I'm in control of my success. Okay, and
Oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
The other, I'm going through this with my own son right now.
Okay.
He does really well at school, but he hasn't learned anything because he takes in the bare minimum he has to do, and he's great at putting back to them exactly what they want to hear. He writes a paper, walks away from it. I'll say to him every day, "What'd you learn today?" "Nothing." And he's not kidding.
Yeah.
He says he didn't learn anything, and I've been trying to this is on the enrichment side of it, but using the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to tell him, the teachers are offering you the material. They've given you the books. They've given you the collateral material you can look at. You're giving back to them exactly what you got in class. But you could actually come out of this, his other one is, well, this course is easy. It's easy. And I said, well, why don't you make it hard on yourself? Try and learn more.
Yeah.
Well, he looks at me.
Why would I have to? Yeah.
He's like, why would I do that?
Why would I if I'm,
But it's
yeah.
the same thing. It's coming right out of the effort, he doesn't understand why I don't think he's learning it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go mad at it and say, well, you tell me every day you didn't learn a thing. Make yourself learn something.
Yeah.
But,
and that really, totally. And that comes from, a perception of, okay, well, here's what I need to get to, and once I've reached that, I'm good. I'm satisfied with that. Well, for him to go up here, there has to be another influence, whether it's a teacher saying this you're better than this, you're low expectations, parents, but it's mainly the environment. Does he want what? Yeah, he has to look at what are the things that he wants, and if all the things that he wants are down here, then he's it's easy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. People don't want to go out of here because, well, what if I fail?
Yeah. But he gets the whole thing based on the marks. If everything is done by the outcome and not the effort.
Yeah.
He's totally settled into, well, my outcome is fine, so what's the difference?
Why do I need to change?
More than this?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've probably heard this too, Alana, is all that matters is your top 6 marks in grade 12.
Mm-hmm.
Which the guidance department tells them directly.
Yeah.
Like in grade 9. Don't bother with anything till grade.
I know, and that's an environment.
He rolls along, he's got good marks, but yeah, it's all based on a whole system that's done on outcome and not effort.
Yeah. And this is why the participation in sports and in here is really the only environment right now that I can think of. If you can think of something else, you can let me know, that actually teaches that. It's your effort. Everything else is result based. I don't care what you do. Just make sure it's, I don't care how you do it. Just get it done, basically, right? So that's more of an environment based thing than it is than anything. But you can begin to change that by showing a little bit more praise for just them sitting down and working through something that's really difficult. Hey, good job. You sat through that whole thing, and you didn't, even though you didn't finish, you sat through it. Good job. That's a start. but I know it's this immediate approval. You know, I've reached it, and I'm good. You know, yeah. Adding movements to increase the difficulty. When we're in an environment and we're in flow, and you start to let them experience a little bit more in flow, okay, great. Now you've got them saying yes a whole bunch of times. Let's see if you can add in another movement or another skill in the mix of that drill that you're doing to increase the difficulty a little bit. They may be in a good spot where they can. They're going to feel comfortable in going more, like, give me more, I want to try more. Yeah, let's do more. And then usually once they fail at something, then they'll say stop. Okay, that's good. I'm going to try this movement. I'm just going to stay there. So we've added, we do this a lot. We add in, once someone's playing around with squats or wall ball or something like that, then we'll see, okay, let's see how well you know that wall ball. We'll send them over to another exercise, have them come back, and then perform the wall ball. Or let's see how well you know your math. Let's go do a drill, movement pattern, whatever it is, come back, sit down, and do that math. Okay? So we can increase difficulty by adding in more multitask or more stimuli to the lesson. Okay? And exploring movement efficiency. This is mainly from you just asking questions and body awareness. This is something that you can pass along to someone, and this is what we're working on right now with most of our brain injury clients is improving and exploring paying attention questions. So a lot of times when they're met with a task, they don't know really how to break it down, what to do, what to think about. So then we practice cues. Okay, well, try it this way. Was it easier that way, or was it easier this way? You know, like at the eye doctor when they flip it, they're like, okay, what was better, 1 or 2? Same idea. Okay, we ask them to do a movement one way, then we ask them to do it another way. What was easier? Okay, and then we explain why, and then they start to develop their own internal body awareness mechanisms. And it can be the same thing with any academic skill or any skill that you're trying to teach them. If they are doing it one way, say, okay, well, try it this way. What'd you find? What was easier? What was better? And that way too, you can also enter a flow state of them with moving back and forth, trying to find efficiency in a movement. Okay, so those are some things that we use to create the Ignite environment, and there's a whole bunch more coming, and I'm sure you guys will be able to discover some of your own too as you go along.